Americans are eager for alternatives to hostile, woke companies. At New Founding, we want to help. What does it take to grow an exceptional, pro-American business, and how can we start more of them? Welcome to Align, where you can find out. Our host, Bart Lamont, will be your guide. From his Indiana family farm to Air Force veteran, Shark Tank entrepreneur to president of Principal Investments, Bart is your premier guide to buying pro-American.
Hello, and thank you for joining us on this episode of Align. Our guest today is Nick Carter of Market Wagon, an online ordering and delivery service for produce, meat, dairy, and prepared foods from local farmers and artisan food producers. You can see their products yourself at marketwagon.com. Hello, Nick. How are things on the farm today?
Things are great.
Remind me, what part of Indiana are you in? I know great to talk to a fellow Hoosier. Always seeing things back on an Indiana farm in the month of June. It's a beautiful time.
Yeah, I grew up on a farm in Howard County, which is about 50 miles north of Indy. But my wife and I actually have a small farm right now on the northeast corner of Indianapolis, just barely inside of Marion County, the Indianapolis Loop there. We've got about 3 acres of produce, several acres of pasture, which are mainly wooded, and where our goats love to just roam through and eat the brush and raise their kids.
So goats, some produce. What all else are you actually harvesting from
goats,
that acreage?
produce, as well as we've got a few hundred laying hens, so we've got eggs. And right now we'll be picking zucchini by this weekend, and radishes are ready to come out of the ground right now. So it's still a little early June. We'll have sweet corn, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, green beans all throughout the summer.
Mm-hmm. And it was a later planting season up in Allen County, where all my family farm is. How are things in Howard County and back with your family farm?
Well, we had a really early planting season, and then after all that flooded out, we had a late planting season. So our sweet corn's definitely a little bit behind. Most of the other stuff is going to catch up. Tomatoes and peppers, they love the heat. Once the heat comes on, they'll catch right up. We start a lot of our vegetables, the specialty crops, indoors, so we can get a little jump on things, and got those transplanted in mid-May.
And so Howard County, that's the Kokomo area for anyone who's not familiar with the rural counties of Indiana. But that's a family farm. How many generations has that been in the family?
4 generations. My great-grandfather farmed those acres. Actually, great-grandfather on my grandma's on my maternal side, and then my grandfather bought the farm as a way of trying to impress my grandma, and it worked. And so bought the acres, built the house, and built the barns. And Dad was raised there. I was raised there. Yep, it's been in the family.
So for many generations, men have been trying to attract our mates by impressing them with business endeavors, right?
That's exactly right.
That's right. Well, it must run in the family. That's good. One of the common themes on Align is entrepreneurship. We love to feature small local business stories, technology, just entrepreneurship in general, right? It's a very broad bucket. But obviously, Market Wagon is not your first business. You and I met years ago, but agriculture, there are some definite common themes in your journey. Can you just walk us through who is Nick Carter and how did he get to be CEO of Market Wagon?
Well, short version is I'm a farm kid turned tech entrepreneur, turned back to farm kid. So I left the farm when I was 18. I grew up in the era of get big or get out, and I guess we didn't get big enough. So there wasn't enough farm for me to take over by the time I was 18. Left, became a college dropout, tech founder, startup junkie, and did pretty well in my first 10 years in Indianapolis, and sold a company to a private equity, and never really enjoyed the tech startup scene. It seems like there's a lot of hype. There's always a lot of celebrity status going on there, and I didn't seem to fit. I like to keep my hands dirty. So about 10 or 12 years ago, I started thinking, how do I take entrepreneurship, what I know about business, what I've developed in my career, the tech skills that I do have, and then shape that as an entrepreneurial journey back toward agriculture and getting my hands dirty. And it's been a windy road, but where we ended up with was an e-commerce farmers market. All of the tech and logistics are driven by technology that I've designed. And one of the first vendors on the marketplace, now there's about 1,800 vendors nationwide, but one of the very first was Dad and the farm that I grew up on, selling grass-fed beef direct to consumers on Market Wagon. So it's come full circle.
That's incredible. I'm going to read from the mission statement I found online. It says, the Market Wagon mission statement. Our mission is to enable local food producers to compete successfully in local and regional markets. We move product as directly as possible from producer to consumer using state-of-the-art online shopping technology, proprietary processes for supplier management, and innovative logistics approaches. In the very early days of Principal Investments, right, our firm that looks at a variety of different ways to invest in the American way of life, as we describe it. In the early days of COVID, we looked at it and said, hey, supply chain disruptions, just shutdowns at these major factories, shipping containers. I mean, we've watched anyone who's not been under a rock for the last 2.5 years. Certainly has seen their daily life change dramatically. But one of the things we literally were trying to place bets on and looking into this marketplace was, how do you actually find a local food solution that scales? So I want to commend you, when I saw some of the updates on Market Wagon, when you and I first connected, kind of talking about maybe coming on to the show here, I want to commend you, because this is the first solution I've seen that actually allows for a nationwide or potentially even global approach to local agriculture.
Yeah.
Good work with that.
Thank you. And you're exactly right. Local food is very difficult to scale. Farmers markets and roadside stands, and they're quaint, they're lovely. People love them, but doesn't seem to be scalable. And the real challenge to solve supply chain issues for the larger population is, how do we take that supply chain of small independent farmers and food producers and chefs and bakers and candlestick makers in the community, and get their products into the hands of the people who want to support the local community and who need the products, but do it in a way that's scalable, right? So parallel, disparate supply chain.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about it is, if everyone loves the idea of going down to their farmers market, supporting their local community, until it's actually time to do it, right? I mean, first of all, maybe it's only open on a Saturday, depending on your community.
That's right.
But what Market Wagon, my understanding and impression of it is, it's really taking the quality of that local farmers market, mixing it with the convenience of an Amazon type checkout service, right? A single checkout box from multiple vendors. The convenience and technology that we as consumers have been trained over the last decade to expect and demand.
Yep. Consumers, for better or for worse, are very convenience driven, and so we are creating e-commerce grocery. You can buy your meat, dairy, eggs, produce, baked goods, like you said, all from one checkout. And then our technology does all the hard work of aggregating everything together, bringing it into one order, routing it, getting it to the customer's doorstep all efficiently, quickly, and in a way that we can scale up and have unit economics that make sense from the business side. Because at the end of the day, a lot of farmers markets, a lot of local food channels, not to disparage them, but they've been nonprofit. Many of them are driven by either donors or government funding, and they fundamentally are not viable businesses. And we are, we're economically driven, and we wanted to make sure that this is a business that makes sense and that everybody in the value chain is getting the right value for what they're producing, and we've been able to do that.
Excellent. So walk me through the kind of idea stage of Market Wagon to, hey, we're really going to build this out, to, hey, it's time to raise some capital and actually make this a real business. Will you take a few minutes for that?
Yeah. So 2016, we wanted to just see if we could get product market fit. That's always earliest need for any startup. Will anyone buy what I think that they're going to buy? So we launched a pilot in Indianapolis. And it was actually based on pickup at the time. Will people shop for local food online? Will they do this e-commerce checkout process for a farmer's market or farmer's market style food? And they did, and it worked. But immediately the very first consumer feedback was we would be able to get bigger and more reach if we had delivery. So within the first few months we launched delivery. That was a challenge. We didn't really know how we were going to do it. We literally, I have pictures of our ops guy with individual cards with addresses on them laid out on the floor of an office because we didn't have routing software. And, he's looking at me going, I know what the next feature of the tech's going to be, boss. You're going to need to build us some routing technology. And we did. So we've now, fast forward, we've built all the last mile traveling salesman algorithms, all the ice pack algorithms, cartonizations, all built into the tech so that we can do this now in 32 cities. And how we got there was long about 2017. We were only in it for about a year and a half before we said, you know what? We need to replicate this. We need to figure out how this business replicates. And so we launched in Allen County. We launched a Fort Wayne hub. Then we launched an Evansville hub. And then we launched in Southwest Ohio, Dayton. What does it look like in a different regulatory environment, different state, different cities? So we were testing and kind of learning the process, designing the process through heuristics, if you will, of how do we replicate. And we had raised a little bit of seed funding. And by March of 2020, we had a playbook for how to replicate this. And we were out in the market trying to pitch and raise capital so that we could go scale up and execute this playbook to launch new geographies. And overnight, the immediate need for what we had just skyrocketed. Farmers markets closed down. The chefs and restaurants and local institutions that were buying from local farms closed down. And the farmers who had been building their business around direct-to-consumer and their local economy were suddenly going, how do I get my food into consumers' hands now? They were going to lose their entire business. And here we sit with a playbook to launch these in 6 weeks. We can launch any new geography in 6 weeks with low capex. We launched 32 cities in about 18 months when it was all said and done. We had the fortunate backing of some Midwest investors. Hyde Park Venture Partners led a Series A. And that gave us the funding that we needed because it is capital intensive to scale up a company like this. And away we went.
What is your footprint in one of those markets? I mean, you have a distribution facility, or kind of help me understand the logistics side of this.
Yeah, the logistics side. One of the things that we did is we engineered a lot of the high capex out of it, meaning multi-temp warehousing, refrigeration equipment, inventory. So we don't build a warehouse where we bring in the local food into a warehouse and then we have to turn it before it expires, right? It's a fulfillment center. So my co-founder, who's a logistics engineer and has designed these things, he likes to call them a bare patch of concrete with wire shelving. So all of the refrigeration is handled by ice packs inside insulated totes, and then a function of time. We've designed our software to make sure that the process of getting all of the items cold from the producer into the tote with the ice pack ready to go and at the doorstep is a matter of hours. And when you do that, you don't need to build a multi-temp warehouse that costs millions of dollars to erect.
So a fulfillment center in each of these markets
Yeah.
is your footprint with a team staffing it just like you would any other e-commerce or D2C
Right.
3PL.
Right. Yeah.
Incredible. So now, I'd like to take a minute then to look at the customer experience. So I'm a customer in one of these 32 markets. Looks like you've obviously scaled very quickly. Most of that growth has all been east of the Mississippi, if your map on the website is correct.
Yep, that's correct. Haven't gotten to you down there in Texas just yet, but we're coming. Don't worry.
All right. Well, it's a big state.
It is.
But we'll welcome you. So if I'm a customer in Indianapolis, let's say, or Fort Wayne, I go to your website. Can you just kind of walk me through a typical timeline, typical experience that way?
Yeah. If you're a customer in Indianapolis, you go to the website. You can start browsing. Most people come in one of two ways. They come in looking for local food and they don't know who the suppliers are. So they search eggs, meat, dairy. They find what's available. They add it to their cart. Some people come in because they know a few local producers. They want to patronize them. So they come in and they look for Kyle Becker, or they look for Mud Creek Farm, or they look for Garcia's Garden, and they grab those items. But they are also going to discover, in Indianapolis, for example, 400 other producers. They're going to find a baker that they never knew existed. They're going to find really interesting cuisine, add it to their cart, check out. We deliver twice a week in Indianapolis. So Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you get your order in by Sunday night at midnight, you'll get your order on Tuesday morning. If you get your order in by Tuesday night at midnight, you'll get it Thursday morning. And the way that works is it's all going to come in one tote with all of the items. Well, depending on how large your order is, it could be multiple totes, but it's going to come in one delivery using insulated totes with ice packs. And our software is going to put things in the right tote so that they're temperature segregated and the cold stuff stays cold and the warm stuff doesn't abuse the cold stuff. And it'll all show up at your doorstep. You'll get a text message that says it's arrived, and the driver's on his way to the next stop.
Love it. So you said you're with about 1,800 different vendors or suppliers or farmers.
Yep.
Is that?
I'm 1,800 different farmers, and we are, just like you read our mission statement from our website. We are here to enable them to thrive. One other thing I forgot to mention about the experience is we go beyond just the transaction. So you don't just see Kyle Becker. He has pork chops. I will buy them. But you can chat with Kyle Becker. We have direct social features on the website so that you can follow his farm and get updates from him. And when he has a new recipe, new product, or just anything going on the farm, you'll get updates in your inbox from him. And you can chat with him. Hey, what do you feed your hogs? Are they pasture raised? What kind of production methods are you using on these eggs or lettuce or whatever it is? The same kind of social experience you'd have at the farmer's market, where you get to chat with the farmer right there across the table and find out more about them and their kids and their family and why they're doing what they're doing. We've built that same experience into the Market Wagon experience too.
In any two-sided marketplace, obviously there's always the chicken and egg problem, right? Consumers only are attracted to you because you have these unique farmer stories on that side. Signing up farmers or other vendors, for them, hopefully it's a pretty seamless, quick process and low risk, right? Why wouldn't they do it? But I'm curious how you go about managing quality as you onboard new vendors and really build out the when you open a new market, what is that process to vet these vendors and farmers and ultimately get them on the platform?
Yeah. That's a great question. When we launched a new market, that was part of the playbook that we had built. What does it take to get a new market off the ground? Because you're right. If we launch without the right customer demand, then the vendors are going to fade and vice versa. So we have a kind of a minimum mix. We know we need to have fluid milk. We know we need eggs. We know we need meat, including both beef, pork, and chicken. We need baked goods, and we need some produce. And we won't launch the market until we have all of those found. Now, the way we find that when we're launching in a new market is we go to the farmer's market. We ask around. We also comb things like Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, because a lot of these producers are listing their things and they're already trying to sell and try to find a market. And we'll find them out there and wherever they're getting their word out, and we'll get in touch with them and say, would you like to join this? And then we make sure we get that minimum viable product, if you will, that ready to go to market mix, ready to go, all the listings confirmed, then we launch. So we don't have a stutter out of the gate, and we launch with a big splash. There's PR and advertising involved. From that point on, growth is still organic and word of mouth. The thing about local food is that there's nobody who comes to us that wants to sell their product on our platform that isn't already known by somebody else on the platform. These communities, Indianapolis is the biggest small town in America. There's a lot of community, especially in the food scene, wherever we're at. And so we can vet any new applicants. We can find out about them. We can go visit them at a farmer's market where we can visit their farm, make sure they got good quality. And then as they get transacting, of course, there's reviews. There's the customer feedback process. And sometimes that catches some things that we weren't aware of too.
Mm-hmm. So what is the actual business model or cost to a vendor, a farmer, if they want to transact on your platform? Is it a percentage of sales, or how do you make your money there?
Yeah, percentage of sales. The percentage will vary based on what services they want from us, but it averages somewhere between 25 and 30%. For that, we're handling all the logistics, so they don't have to box their items. They don't have to do the dry ice or any of those things. We handle all the fulfillment and logistics, as well as bringing them the customers and the transaction. And our business model is just we win when they win. So we don't charge them fees. We don't have a listing fee or an onboarding fee or an application fee or anything of that nature. We want to create commerce, and when we create commerce for the local farmers, then we all win.
That's so important to see, truly your interests aligned, right? And when they grow, you grow. I'm sure so many of these farmers, like you said, Indianapolis is the biggest small town. But especially when you start talking about even smaller rural communities where these groups know each other. I'm curious when you talk through or think through any of your vendors. Any unique stories out there about some community impact or how I'm sure it's helped grow some businesses over the last several years where to a point they never dreamt they'd be.
Yeah, there's been entrepreneurs who have had an idea for a recipe that they wanted to start and they were able to actually get it going on Market Wagon. I mean, food is a very difficult industry to have that embryonic stage of entrepreneurship in because of some of the hurdles in market access, which we've torn down. There's first generation farmers getting acreage, starting a garden, starting a produce or even meat and dairy that can build a market on Market Wagon. But my favorite story along these lines, actually, it is centered around the pandemic, and she was a guest on my podcast, and I asked her to tell her story. And at the time, my podcast didn't have a video component, and I was glad because I was able to mute and pause and come back, and nobody was able to hear in the final edit that I was choking up listening to her. Her name is Reggie Green, Reggie's Creations, and she's in Cleveland, Ohio. She was a kitchen worker. She worked in food service, line cook, and of course, all the restaurants got completely demolished through the COVID shutdowns. Mm-hmm. So she finds herself at home with no job and trying to make ends meet, and she found this listing for a gig driver for Market Wagon because we were growing like crazy and we needed to be able to get all the food delivered to the doors that was being ordered on our platform. So she came in and she was driving routes for us for a few weeks, and while she was in the facility, she overheard the hub coordinator having a conversation on the phone with somebody from our corporate office about supply and whether or not we would even continue to have enough food producers to produce enough food for all the demand that was being created and all the new customers that kept coming to Market Wagon through the pandemic while people had to stay home. And when she got off that phone call, this driver walked up, tapped her on the shoulder, and said, I know how to cook. What can I sell? Well, in the state of Ohio, they allow home-based vendors to produce food in their own kitchens with certain regulations that they have to be non-potentially hazardous foods. So she didn't have to have any CapEx. She could go home to her home kitchen, the oven that she has at home, buy some ingredients from the local grocery store, and she made chocolates and candy because those were non-potentially hazardous foods that she was allowed to legally sell in the state of Ohio. And she had them listed on Market Wagon the next day, and she had orders the following week. Those orders grew into thousands of dollars worth of orders. Then she was able to save up enough money from the business that she had built growing baked goods and candies and chocolates on Market Wagon to invest in her own commercially licensed and inspected kitchen. So she got over that capital hurdle as an entrepreneur. Now she's got frozen meals, entire dinners, recipes, all kinds of things, and she's growing this business, employing other people, and she's making her full-time income by selling these foods on Market Wagon with delivery. And it's just my favorite story to share because it's all the way from idea, overcoming challenges, overcoming regulatory hurdles, and getting into the market, and it was built with Market Wagon's platform.
That's incredible. Love how this is so many times technology and large scale businesses like that get a bad rap for taking away jobs and harming small business. But it's honestly one thing I love about the Market Wagon story and approach and truly the marketplace is it reminds me so much of the very early days of Robin, our old landscaping platform. And so, that was a marketplace for landscaping crews to meet homeowners and, actually transact. And the story you just told literally reminds me of one of the landscaping crews, husband and wife team in Houston that, we watched them build their business from, a husband and wife in a truck to, within months, they're sending us photos of a new truck, a new trailer, commercial equipment, actually scaling up, right? And this is the power of technology when used for good to help small business. So kudos to you for developing this marketplace, but giving them a platform where they can actually grow and make an impact for their families and community.
Kudos to you, too. You've done the same thing. It's great to meet somebody who has the same passion and is doing the same stuff out there in the marketplace.
So you mentioned your podcast. Give us a quick plug.
It's called More Than a Mile.
What's the focus?
More Than a Mile, and it's based off of the book that I wrote, which is called More Than a Mile: What America Needs from Local Food. And on our podcast, we just share the stories, these exact same stories. Regina was one of them, Reggie Green. But we bring farmers and food producers on to share their story of how they got into what they're doing and why they do it. And it's amazing. Every single farmer has a different story. Their background, their heritage, grandpa, or sometimes first generation.
So, I'm interested. Obviously, everyone again watching is has an interest in local communities and businesses and those stories. But you can't watch the news these days without questioning food security, whether it's infant formula, but with Ukraine and Russia, global agricultural supply chains are certainly in flux. Where do you see the next several years of the American economy and the importance of agriculture and especially the local food movement?
Yeah, I think that moving grain across oceans is probably going to become less and less popular. I think we have the fortunate ability here in the U.S. that we can feed our own population, and there's definitely been, like you said, some realization of how fragile the food supply chain, especially one that is becoming very centralized. Very few entities at the top control a lot of the food supply, whether that's in grain or in dairy or especially in the meat industry. That's become very, very consolidated. And the interest in not only supporting the local food economy, but just knowing where my food comes from gives us more security, consumer confidence, knowing that, when I need food, I know a guy who makes it. If you're in a supermarket, you're buying, items off the shelf. That's not really true about what's behind that. One of the things that happened on our own little farm, we have a farm stand, roadside stand on the side of the road on 86th Street in Indianapolis, where it's honor system, unmanned. People come by and buy food. Well, by April of 2020, we've got a mini fridge that's solar powered, and I could stock that thing in the morning, and it would be empty in 20 minutes because somebody would come by and take 22 dozen eggs and hoard them. So we put up a sign, and all the sign said was, "Stop panic buying, because these eggs come from those 400 hens that you can see on the other side of that fence, and they're not stopping. Okay, they will be here tomorrow." And it stopped. People bought what they needed. They bought 2-3 dozen eggs at a time, and we were able to get rid of that panic and get rid of the consumer fear, and then regulate their supply chain on a very micro scale. We're talking about our little egg stand, but it really mattered. People's buying habits changed because of the fear. And I think when you can understand where it comes from, the fear goes away. When you can understand how food is making it to your cupboard and how your family is going to eat next week, the fear and trepidation behind that goes away. Consumer confidence is a really, really big part of our entire economy.
Well, unfortunately, fear gets a lot of clicks on internet stories and views on a 24-hour news cycle. So I love the idea of that sign, and understanding consumer psychology, right, is the key to any consumer-facing business like that. You mentioned some of your work finding vendors on Facebook Marketplace. Another common theme we've heard on this show from especially direct-to-consumer tech-focused businesses is some of the challenges they face with the most recent Apple updates to the iOS 14 privacy updates. Right? We all care about privacy. We all care about data. We want it used responsibly. But some might say it was politically motivated. Some might say it was purely privacy only. That's for another debate. But I'm sure that's not the only challenge you've faced. I'm curious to hear, if that was one of the major hurdles or any other unique challenges you've faced over the last several years as other entrepreneurs are, finding some inspiration in your story as their challenges are faced with some of these same hurdles.
Yeah, you mentioned the privacy updates. iOS 14 came out in April of 2021, and I could show you graphs. You can see the inflection point. Man, did it impact our business in a dramatic way. We had spent, by that point, 5.5 to 6 years reliably getting it, knowing that we could get the word out to the right customer who cared about what we were offering, at an expected return rate for the ad dollars that we were deploying. It's called a customer acquisition cost. It was normal, it was standard, and it hadn't fluctuated much in 5 years. And it tripled in the months following that. And when your acquisition costs triple, you can't keep doing that. It's no longer viable. So we had to completely reinvent what it meant for us to get just the word out and let people know about what we're offering. For us, we were fortunate. We've been able to create word of mouth and partnerships. So we retooled the way that we work with the producers on our platform, because we knew that every day, those farmers markets, maybe not every day, but every weekend, they were standing at a farmers market talking to people who shop that farmers market and may also need to be able to get delivery online when the farmers market's not open or if they aren't around. And so we started sharing what we had been spending in advertising with Facebook so we could line Zuckerberg's pockets. Well, we're going to spend that with the local farmer. Hey, if you can get the word out for us, if you can help drive people to the platform, that has value to us. We compensate them for that. Then we were able to build a partnership. I was really excited. Last week we just announced a strategic partnership with Kroger. The nation's largest retail grocer has decided that they are interested in helping us to let people know that they can shop online and get local food delivered to them. So we are partnering with Kroger. We're going to be launching other partnerships similar to that to meet the consumer where they are, because less and less they are not on Facebook, right? It used to be, if you want to meet the consumer where they are, you just go to Facebook, because they had like the whole world as a user base, and that's eroding. It's eroding quite quickly. And now we're meeting the consumer where they are in other ways.
Congratulations on the Kroger partnership. I saw that news last week. How powerful that you said, the nation's largest grocer.
Yeah.
I'm curious that is Atlanta, is that the pilot area?
We're launching in Atlanta to begin with. Yeah.
Okay, and how can you walk us through, or are there details released yet? I mean, how that customer journey will differ from the typical Market Wagon?
Yeah, I mean, some of the finer details we'll leave behind the NDA, but the basic idea, what you could see if you went and shopped, is KrogerFarmersMarket.com. It's a Kroger branded experience, and because Kroger wants to support local, they want consumers to know that just because they're a national corporation, that they actually have invested in the communities where they're at, Atlanta being one of them. And so they are driving their consumers who are buying groceries through Kroger and saying, look, if you want to support the local producers there in your community, we have a way that we can do that. We can do that through this KrogerFarmersMarket.com. And KrogerFarmersMarket.com just goes to a Market Wagon experience, basically, but it's co-branded with Kroger. And you can shop the same way that you would shop on Market Wagon. You're now shopping in Atlanta with a co-brand with Kroger and getting it delivered. Not much is different after that handoff there. But kudos to Kroger for realizing that there's power in the local food community, that it's a trend, not a fad, and that they have invested deeply and tangibly now in supporting the local food producers there in the Atlanta market, and will soon be doing so in all of their geographies.
Excellent. Well, maybe that's what'll get you down here to Dallas, so we can test it ourselves.
Very well, could be.
Well, that kind of leads us into the final segment, and probably my favorite of the show here. It's where I break out. One of these days, I'm going to get a real crystal ball and sit that out, right? But obviously, the Kroger partnership's huge. The ability to power the back end and actually provide some fulfillment and logistics for these types of brands that are at least smart enough to know they can't do it themselves, right? And understanding innovation takes place with entrepreneurs like you, not inside the gilded halls of a corporate headquarters. But I'm curious, what is as you look and do your own business planning, for the next 3, 5, 10 years of Market Wagon, what does growth look like? What does the future look like for you?
Yeah, real simple. We believe every community in America should be able to order local food, get it delivered from their local farmers, and it's as convenient as e-commerce. So we want to build e-commerce farmers market everywhere. There's about 120 sites that we've already identified to where we can operate a fulfillment center, and that'll reach about 80% of the population. For any of your listeners in Montana, You guys just need to get into some bigger cities because it is really difficult to do last mile up there. Montana and North Dakota,
state.
I think, are the only two states where we're looking at it and trying to make all the numbers turn black. But it's a tough one up there and to make the economics work. But for the majority of the U.S., we're going to be able to reach, and that is an interesting. I joke about North Dakota, but here in Indiana, for example, I know you're from Indiana. We don't just deliver to Indianapolis. We deliver to all the way down to Bloomington. We deliver to Lafayette. We deliver everywhere in between. Muncie, Henry County, Delaware County, Madison County. All the rural counties also have access to this. This is something we're democratizing local food. So what's the future look like for us? Yeah, we want to feed the entire country this way. We want to give everybody access to locally produced food. And as we do that, I think that we're going to be leading this direct-to-consumer channel for food producers from it's hard to get your number on your fingers on the data, but less than 1% of the U.S. food spend is actually spent locally. For all of the accolade and all of the talk and all of the hubbub around local food, less than 1% of the actual food spend in the U.S. goes direct to consumer to a local farmer or a local food producer. We want to drive that number to a meaningful share of the local food segment. 10% is our vision. We're not telling people, oh, you'll never buy anything globally. I mean, I'm sitting here as we talk, I'm drinking coffee. Hard to grow a coffee bean in Indiana. I love avocados, and I still eat bananas with my breakfast. We're not telling people that we're going to completely replace supermarkets, but there's real power in buying things from a local economy and seeing that dollar velocity, and we want to give people that power.
That's incredible. I think you're uniquely positioned to accomplish that, Nick, and and honestly improve not just your local community, but so many local communities and strengthen. And you think about the concept of a food desert, right? Where so many of these small rural towns or urban areas, their only local store might be a Dollar General. I know they're moving into some types of marketplaces like that, but the ability to get and then look at the downward effects on society and childhood obesity rates, right? Where they're not eating fresh local foods. So it's where I see great ambition and hope and I don't want to use the words hope and change if we heard that one before, but honestly, true ability to make an impact and solve a real problem facing our society. So kudos to you for getting your hands dirty, getting back on the farm, building and using. I think it's really interesting to take the tech entrepreneur side and mix it with the Indiana farm boy and put those two together and actually build a real solution that's solving hard problems. So keep up the good work. Final question is how can our viewers support you? Obviously, we're going to send them to Market Wagon. We'll put a link, marketwagon.com on the site there. But how else can we help you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Marketwagon.com. If you are in one of our delivery areas, and a good portion of the U.S. already is, you should check it out. And if you're not, sign up for the waiting list, and we'll be there soon. Spread the word. And the only other thing I would say, for anybody who is listening to this, going local food, okay, why? It's just some people that don't really understand yet what the real attraction is. Here's my challenge: try and produce something that you would eat. I don't care if you live in an apartment and you're going to grow a tomato plant on your patio, but I would challenge anybody to try and actually make food from raw commodity, right? Dirt, grow a tomato, have a backyard chicken. You will understand within a matter of months the work, the labor, the risks, how easy it is to fail and lose all of your investment. Then you'll appreciate food producers. I love to challenge anybody to do that. And most people have never done it, never produced a single ounce of food on their own. And I think it just gives you a new appreciation. So if you are not in our delivery area yet, just try that. Try that this summer.
I love that challenge, Nick, and I'm going to add to that for anyone watching this that is willing to accept Nick's challenge and send us a video clip of what you have produced. We will send you a special Align gift box with some products that we've featured on the show here. So please engage as a listener. Visit marketwagon.com. Get out in your garden. Get out on your porch. Build something. Take inspiration in Nick's story. Get out. Improve your community. Solve hard problems. Nick, thank you for joining us today. Really, really great to reconnect. Keep up the good work, and God bless.
Thanks, Bart.
Thank you for joining us on Align. As Americans, we want to buy from companies that make our country stronger. Subscribe to this podcast and share so we can grow our network of businesses and consumers who share patriotic values.